Okay, good afternoon. Let me know how the sound is. The wind is very ferocious here. Reporting to you live at National Harbor, Maryland. Khashoggi 1 in the background. Very famous now. Remember, we started broadcasting about Khashoggi 1 about a week before the name Khashoggi came back into the news. If you were around in the 1980s, you knew about Khashoggi a lot. He was a lot of in the news quite a bit with Iran-Contra. There was a lot of talking about financing different terrorist operations, the newfound money from the oil embargo from the Saudis. In 1973, it tripled the price of oil. Americans were paying $1 a gallon. There was all, very good, there was all this flush money now with the Saudis, and they were going to start financing these religious wars around the world because they're obviously religiously conservative. Their royal families wanting to maintain their, it's not too bad. They wanted to maintain their legitimacy as the ruling class. Some people say that it was really just the British Petroleum's version of the royal families. All the Emirates, though, end up with people that are all kind of related to each other. A lot of people in the UAE royalty are related to the Saudi royalty, Bahrain, of course, Qatar, these other smaller countries. A lot of very close relationships. So a lot of people have said, hey, wasn't this just Churchill's way of, and then later on BP and British Intel's way of dominating all the oil in the area. Now that's a very skeptical thought, but it could be true. Could be true. We do see a lot of relatives overlapping, and so with Khashoggi 1, I just read an article in The Economist, and don't forget at The Atlantic. This is my new symbol for. Remind me to talk about Crowdstrike. Remind me to talk about the Atlantic Council. Remind me to talk to you about George Soros. The Chalupas, that little spy network, right? We can't leave them out. But Khashoggi, the Economist says, well, it is true that there was some intelligence background. Yeah, he was actually the assistant to King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia. Yeah, the right-hand man of the king. Yeah, I guess so. And he was the right-hand man of Turk Faisal, who was the head of Saudi intelligence. Well, I'm talking about Jamal Khashoggi now, not Adnan, the uncle, right? But I'm talking about Jamal, the guy who ran Saudi intelligence for 24 years. The guy who ran Saudi intelligence up until about a week or two before 9/11. Now, as everybody on this channel knows, I'm not a big 9/11 guy, but you have to tell the truth too. I mean, I think I accept the story of the 9/11 hijackers. I'm not into all the conspiracy theories, but this plane, if you follow Evergreen Aviation, and I do know something about this because I was distantly connected to Evergreen Aviation when I lived in Oregon. The Evergreen Aviation, first of all, yesterday I talked about the Saudis being the bankers, right? They're flush from this money from the 73 oil embargo. They have all this money, and they want legitimacy more than anything else. They don't want to be. No one wants people to say, "Hey, you're just a British prop. You're just a BP install for looting all the resources from our country." They want to be seen as very religious and very devout and so forth. So it's almost like the people in Hollywood, the George Clooney's, the rich uncles, supporting some foreign war somewhere else. That's a war of virtue, right? So the war of virtue, maybe, giving money to the people in Nepal or something like that. The Saudis have that same kind of relationship with religious fundamentalist wars all around the world. So take Pakistan in 1975 or 1979. First, the Russians are there. This plane is, I believe, goes over to become Evergreen Aviation in 1979, coincidentally. Now, if you are let's say your name's Osama bin Laden or his right-hand man, Jamal Khashoggi, it's 1979, and you're flush with all this oil money, and you want to go help support this revolution, this Wahhabi-type revolution, this conservative revolution. Well, the first thing you're going to do in the 70s is you're going to put in these students, they always say the CIA starts all the revolutions with a school and a book and books. They don't start revolutions with, immediately having people sawing the bridges, right? You start a school, and the one they went after, I believe, was QIA. I think it's Quetta I Azam, QIA, in Islamabad. The 70s, again, I'm old enough to remember this. Pakistan was kind of a secular nation. It was kind of a hip, kind of wild, kind of Charlie. Older people might remember that commercial. But it's like, hey, wow, this is kind of a fun place to be. Parties and rock and roll, dude. And this QAI, this Azam University, like Quetta I Azam, kind of became this hotspot, this cauldron to stir up this fundamentalist stuff. And Saudis were sending money in there and sending, stirring revolution up so that when the day came to actually fly the guns in and fly the jihadists in, they were ready to go. And it was financed with drugs. The Northern Alliance mainly financed most of their operations with drugs, and the Taliban toward the south did less of that. But certainly the Northern Alliance funded their operations with drugs. So if you're going back to Saudi Arabia, you can, hey, I got a couple of keys in my suitcase there, Mr. Customs Man. Don't touch my bags if you please, right? So that's how you pay for these things, right? So 1979 comes along, and now that Russia invades Afghanistan, the Saudis match, I'm pretty sure the Saudis match, in order to be seen to be supporting these revolutions with the Mujahideen and Osama bin Laden, they match every dollar the CIA puts in, every dollar Zbigniew Brzezinski puts in, the Osama bin Laden matches it dollar for dollar. Now we see a lot of pictures of Osama bin Laden, and he's out in the middle of the field and he's shooting a weapon usually, or he's living in Tora Bora, and that's just not the case. Osama bin Laden, the 17th son of a billionaire, of construction billionaire, and what he was doing was basically taking this money that came from drug operations and feeding it into the Mujahideen and sort of being a banker. Now, one of the ways you could be a banker, one of the ways the Saudis were the banker, BCCI was the 7th largest bank in the world. So no one could tell me that this was not a big operation. It's the 7th largest bank in the world. A Pakistani bank, remember. Pakistani bank, the 7th largest bank in the world, okay? One of the ways to do it is lease them a plane. Lease the plane. Because the beauty of leasing a plane is there's no FinCEN transaction. There's no transaction. I just fly in. Plus, it serves a double bonus because it also provides the jihadists, and it's also going to provide the weapons. And I probably can get USAID money if I say it's a humanitarian aid. So Jamal Khashoggi, again, remember, he's working for, beginning in that period of time, those 24-year period, he's working and very close friends with Turk Faisal, the guy who's running Saudi intelligence. That whole time, from 79 all the way till 9/11, okay? So you can't dissociate Jamal Khashoggi from Saudi intelligence. You can't dissociate him from the 70s, 80s, 90s, right, all up until 9/11, because he's the right-hand man of Saudi intelligence. Now, as I've said before, I'm not a big 9/11 guy, but we'll get to that in a second. But let's take the 10 years of taking down the Soviet Union first, from 1979 to 1989, okay? Who do we have with pictures? People say, oh, there's a picture where he posed with an AK-47. I'm talking about Jamal Khashoggi now, right? Not Adnan Khashoggi, the owner of the plane, right? Well, there's also pictures of him holding Stinger missiles in 1986, okay? Those Stinger missiles, who do you think made those Stinger missiles? Raytheon. Now, I realize other people make them, but Raytheon's one of the biggies. Sorry about the wind, everybody. I don't know if you can't hear or not. Are people saying it's Can somebody super chat me and say I can't hear? Anyway, Raytheon, Stinger missiles. Those Stinger missiles somebody could be out on a boat right here, right now, and those are a threat to American aviation. Because you can shoot them up and you don't have to be any good. You fire and forget, and they hit the plane and could take down a U.S. airplane. The CIA had a big program to buy these back, right? We shipped, I think, about, I want to say 2,000 Stinger missiles in that time. And guess who was the key guy putting the Stinger missiles on the plane? Jamal Khashoggi. He's the guy posing with the Stinger missiles, the Raytheon Stinger missiles. So you cannot dissociate Jamal Khashoggi from Saudi intelligence. You cannot dissociate Jamal Stinger Khashoggi. There's rumors that in the royal family they wanted to call him Stinger for a while. They thought Jamal was, Stinger is kind of a neat nickname. Some people were talking about Raytheon. There was other arguing for Stinger. No, I'm joking there. I'm joking. He wasn't actually nicknamed Stinger, but he certainly was posing. Show me other pictures. Show me other pictures. Sorry about the wind. Show me other pictures of a Saudi intelligence agent in Pakistan at that time with Stinger missiles. There isn't any. It's Jamal Khashoggi, right? Jamal Khashoggi is the key go-between for the head of Saudi intelligence. Okay, thanks, John. Okay. Shoot. All right, it'll come back to me. The wind noise is interrupting? Okay. Oh, you can hear. Okay, great. Okay, so every once in a while we'll have to go back and edit it out. You get that wind tunnel effect. It reminds me of Glenn L. Martin actually has a wind tunnel named after him over at the University of Maryland, where we had the Triga reactors, right? The Triga reactors, the research reactors, those reactors that use medium to highly enriched uranium. And remember, if we exfiltrated that technology around the world and we diverted the HEU, we could sell that to nations all over the world. So thank you. So every time you hear a wind noise, just think of the Glenn Martin wind tunnel. Think of the Triga reactor right next to it. Think of us selling that technology to Iran, North Korea, Libya, etc. And then you'll have, the wind will key you in. Immediately you'll start thinking Triga, Triga, Triga. Wind means Triga. Wind means exfiltration into Iran of HEU or MEU. And the big question in your mind now when you hear the wind will be, is that MEU? Is that strong enough wind to be just an MEU, or was that a gust, HEU level gust? So you're going to have to mentally in your mind, every time you hear a gust, you're going to say, is that MEU going into the research reactors all over the world, or is that HEU? Okay, so there's your little association game that you can play. But getting back to our good friends here, one of the ways of loaning money for a revolution is, I loan you the plane, I lease you the plane. That's exactly what happened with this plane, with Evergreen Aviation, right? Now, do you think we're going to, okay, here we are, we're going to take over our first load of 400 jihadists, right? These are guys who've been trained, right? You don't want to send in a bunch of people who haven't been trained. These are villagers that can't read, right? We don't want to send a bunch of Stinger missiles in and so forth with people who aren't trained. We're going to tell them how to do, sorry about the wind. Think HEU or MEU, that's your choice. Think about Triga, MEU or HEU. I might duck in behind. Okay, I'm going to duck here just a second as the wind is coming up on us. Trust me, I'm still at National Harbor. Still at National Harbor. All right, now it's settling down. Okay, so it's beautiful today. A little cold, but beautiful. All right. So we'll walk around this way, keep people out of we'll walk a little bit. Sorry about the wind gust, there's not much I can do about that. But it's authentic, it's not my mother's basement, okay? So where were we? We were talking about flying in insurgents, right? Flying in trained people. Are you gonna have Evergreen Aviation painted on the side? We're gonna fly from Riyadh. We're going to load up the plane with all the Raytheon Stingers, right? Jamal's there pushing them on, on a cart. He's pushing one after another. He's posing every once in a while with the Stinger. Then he's pushing it up, pushing all the Stingers in. And Riyadh, and then he looks up at the plane. He looks at the plane and he says, "Wait a minute. That says Evergreen. Everybody knows that's CIA. That's going to be a big problem. We can't fly into Kabul or Islamabad. We can't fly into Islamabad with Evergreen. Everybody's going to say that's a CIA plane. What are you doing?" I got a great idea. Let's fly this plane first before we fly the Stingers over. Fly it up to the Quonset hut. Fly it up to the Quonset hut in Rhode Island where they do repainting. And we'll make this an Afghan airliner. Ariana, not Ivanka, not Ariana Huffington, but you can think of Huffington, I think, because that's where the Saudi pilots trained in Huffington Aviation down in Florida, right? A couple of them, Atta, I think. So you can think Ariana Huffington, right? Maybe that's an inside wink because the plane was probably painted as an Ariana plane during the initial weapon shipments, right? If an Ariana Afghan plane comes flying in to Kabul or to Pakistan or whatever, could be, I can't remember the Pakistani airline right now, but you get the idea. I just paint the plane with the domestic colors. As long as it's a CIA flight, I'm good to go. I can suppress the recording of the flight, and then I'm pretty much good to go. And I keep flying and shuttling until I need to move my mujahideen to the next country. And sorry about that wind. Here, I'll move. MEUHEU. That's your only decision. And then you might want to think, is it Natanz? Is it strong enough wind for Natanz? Or is it Fordow? Or is it one of the other Kong? Or one of the other places for secret? So I don't like this because I lose the picture of the plane. But anyway. We'll go back now. We'll get out of that gust. I tell you what, I'll be able to move quicker back and forth now that I'm up here. So, this plane probably gets repainted. We know that they repaint planes in Rhode Island. Why? Because they just did. They just did repaint it. We know they do repainting up there. We know the CIA does repainting of planes up there because they just repainted this plane. Okay? So that's basically the strategy in the 80s, all right? 89, I think the Soviets pull out in 89 out of Afghanistan, 91, communism falls. What are you ready to do with your mujahideen? Hey, let's go after some of the old satellites of Soviet Union. Again, we'll tell the family that you're going on a Mecca, you're going on a Mecca thing, your pilgrimage, and we'll go to Bosnia. We'll go to Montenegro. We'll go to Kosovo. We'll go to Croatia. Hey, the cool part about this is this time when you get the girls, when you take over those villages, you fly them to China. You fly the blue-eyed, blonde-haired, tall girls to China. You pay for this thing like that. Pay for it quick. A lot of that happened. Sorry, folks. A lot of that happened. And I'm not saying it didn't happen in Pakistan, but trafficking really zoomed up to China, unfortunately, with the Eastern European stuff. But again, the idea is the same. You have mujahideen. It's your same guys. You just keep moving them, keep flying them around. No wonder the CIA put it here. No wonder they knew Khashoggi. They were going to run the Khashoggi operation. They put the plane here knowing that they were going to run the Khashoggi operation. The key guy, I'm telling you, the key guy, remember, he's the right-hand man. It's like Michael Flynn to so close to Stan McChrystal. Those two guys, the head of Saudi intelligence, is that close to Jamal Khashoggi. Remember, he used to be the assistant to the King Abdullah, right? So now we move through. We've talked a lot about, talk about these old Russian bases that used to be. Montenegro used to have a base in Russia, and it got sold, and I want to say Khashoggi bought it. I got to check my facts on that one. I can't remember, but they were sort of using the Saudis as a banker to buy up these old Russian different bases of the old Soviet Union, right? And using the Saudis to broker and rinse the transaction. Pretty sure, I can't remember exactly. I thought there was a base in Montenegro. I could be wrong. Same place the Queen K was, right? With John McCain a little bit later. Okay, so we're not quite to 9/11 yet. That whole operation runs till 1999 with Kosovo, right? So the next big thing is, well, you got to train these people how to fly this thing if you're going to do 9/11. They train somewhere, right? Well, I'm not a big Saudis did 9/11 thing, but 15 of the 19 were Saudis. 2 of them were UAE. I think one was Egypt. I think Mohammed Atta was Egypt, and they really pushed him forward because they didn't want it to seem so Saudi. Then there was one other one, like from Morocco or something. But the idea was 4 teams, and then there was 3 kind of control or advanced guys. And really the Atta and the other guy, the Saudi pilots, were the ones that went down to Florida and did the flight school. I think there was one other. There was 4 pilots, obviously, out of the 20. I can't remember all the details, but I know I just came from yesterday. It was 2 days ago up in Laurel, Maryland. Again, we're going to come back to Laurel, Maryland, because that's where I got the tip a year ago in May, when Andy McCabe becomes the head of FBI. That's where I got the tip. Very Muslim population up there. I love Muslim people. I love Pakistani people. I love ISI. I love Pakistani 111. I just hate the ones that send terabytes to Pakistan to crime figures to build hospitals that make opiates to bring back into the country to kill people. That's the only people in ISI I don't like. But anyway, I was given a tip that they were up there doing a crossfire hurricane like you can't believe. Crossfire hurricane, cyclone, all, this is after Trump has won 2017. Everyone come up to get your Jeep Wackenhut Pakistan ID card, right, with your G4S sticker, and we'll get you your stamp from GCHQ, and you're going to go right in, and you're going to do deep dives on the weekends. You're going to do deep dives at night. We're going to get this Trump guy out of here, and everything you do is going to go straight toward this new thing we got. It's called the Special Counsel, Robert Mueller. Now, after all that, they came up with Zippo, and now they may suppress. It's not going to release the results before the election. Now they may suppress the whole report, right? So let's go ahead and commit a whole bunch of FISA abuses up until May, because we don't want to see what we did after. We really turned on the heat after with illegal search and seizure, right? With all these GCHQ. And I believe Imran now was a part of the second takedown, not as much the first. The first was more the Atlantic Council, more the Russians. Imran was mainly doing the movement of NGP ban, but we don't know that yet. So again, I think Trump has the ability to declassify. Sorry, I'm going to move over a sec. It's getting really windy. There's Gus. Think Heumeu. Think Triga. Think, where's the Triga? Where are the Trigas? Where are the Trigas? So we have that. Now we're getting to 9/11, which is 2 of them, one team up here in Laurel, Maryland, one team obviously out in Arizona, I believe. Bottom line is, they got the planes, they trained on something. All the muscle guys that came in 3 months before, they trained on something. They were trained to go into a 747, where the cabins were, where everything was, right? And then they come over here in July of 2001. What did they train on? Why wouldn't you train on that plane? I'm just saying, if this is Jamal Khashoggi's personal Stinger plane, personal Raytheon Stinger plane, why wouldn't you? I mean, again, that's your surreptitious plane. That's the one that the CIA has given you clearance from Clarence. That's the one the CIA says, let it go. Don't interdict. And again, deep uranium flight officer for the Navy. He's the one, CIA, he's the one who told me, and I don't know if he was CIA or not, he said he wasn't, but he's the one who told me that if Pontchartrain listening station, there was certain call signs where they said, you can keep going. We're not, no interdict, no interdict. Where would you train? That would be my plane. Khashoggi 1. Khashoggi 1. That's the plane. Now, I'm not saying that is or it isn't, but again, wouldn't it be, if you were John Brennan, oh, yes, great. If you were John Brennan and you wanted to send a signal to Trump right now to run this little Khashoggi op on him, what I would do, remember, Khashoggi knows for the last 40 years all the people in all the different places buying weapons, okay? It would be very dumb to kill Khashoggi, right? Because you're killing a guy who knows the whole weapons. That's like having a great salesman and killing your salesman. Doesn't make any sense. He knows where the weapons are for the last 40 years. What I would do is I would kidnap him. Or let's say exile him, take him off the market, throw a porcupine in Trump's lap right before the election, and maybe queer the Saudi above the board arms deal, so that now I could sell to those same governments at a premium covertly. And I might need to think HEU and MEU. That's all you can think of. You see those gusts. I wish it was highly enriched gusts or medium enriched gusts. It should be, I'll think of undulations. Think of the wind as an undulation. Highly enriched undulations or medium enriched undulations. So we might be having another highly enriched undulation coming up here. But my bottom line is, they had to train on some plane. What plane did they train on? Does anybody know? Well, the first person I would ask is Jamal Khashoggi. He used it for 40 years with his uncle. I don't think this is Adnan's plane anymore. I think this is Jamal Khashoggi's plane. Again, Evergreen Aviation has the ability to have its call sign blocked. Up in the Rhode Island facility, you're allowed to repaint it, repatch it, different call signs, put in different transponders. They know how to do this stuff. They're really good at that at Quonset Naval Air Station. Again, CIA facility. A lot of the sites that got closed and the base closures in the 80s became CIA sites. Okay, they just war against terror. This has to be covert now. We can't be overt. We're still flying the planes. We're still flying the P-3 Orion, the Lockheed plane, looking for terrorists. Matter of fact, I believe they brought in for the DC sniper. They were going to bring in P-3 Orions to look for the DC sniper. And you got the P-8, which is a modified 747. So I look at the connections and I say, why not? Tell me the plane that they trained on. And wouldn't that be, if you were John Brennan, wouldn't that be the plane you would park here right now? And wouldn't you paint it Air Force One to show that you were the one really in charge? Wouldn't that be a great way to send a message out and say, this plane, this covert plane that we've used for the last 40 years, for all of our covert, we're now going to park it right across the river from you, Trump, right across the river. That's what I would do, especially Khashoggi's plane, because now we're going to run the Khashoggi op. What I would do is, now that everybody thinks this guy's dead, again, no metadata. When I see the body parts and I see the DNA test, I'll believe the metadata. But up until now, no metadata. This is Seth Rich all over again. I don't see any metadata. I would have that guy living over in Cyprus. That's what I'd put him, at the deal desk. Hey, I'd have him sitting right next to Carter Page. Hey Carter, this one's for you. This is for nuclear. This is nuclear fuel rods, Carter. This one's for you. And then, oh, this is an easy one, George, this one's for you. This is only Club K. This is only Club K. Oh, he asked a question about advanced heads-up displays. Carter, come on. This one's for you. This is a tough one. I'd be sitting over there at the deal desk. Hey, I would have him sitting right next to the Prevezon guy, the Prevezon banker. Hey, we're going to need to launder another 200 million. Can we get FinCEN? Can we drop FinCEN for about 10 minutes? Sure, sure. Hey, we can't send this through the SWIFT network. Hey, Julie Swetnick, you're up there at SWIFT in Brussels. Can you just knock out that last $200 million transfer for that plane we just bought? Now remember, Julie is up there for 6 months or a year. Is she deleting a whole bunch of transactions that, have been going on the last 40 years, that were in the Panama Papers that they didn't want in the Panama Papers? I don't know. But if it was me, I would have the Charlie's Angels on this plane bringing their luggage back full with cocaine. If she was going to South America or Central America, I'd have it full of heroin if it was coming back from China. Remember, it was Pan Am for a while. Remember, she's got the 5 or 6 top secret clearances. You tell me, and she worked for American Airlines for the first things on her resume. So you tell me somebody who would be more likely. Again, Ralph Blase, Mr. Rangoon, meat helmets in Rangoon? No, they were opium helmets in Rangoon. We didn't make meat helmets in Rangoon. Maybe we put the opium inside the meat helmets in Rangoon. But the Bangkok, Burma opium run, that was Deek and Blase. So if you spend 30 years in the drug business, do you all of a sudden just get out? Would your daughter end up being in the drug business? Would her best friend for 30 years end up being in the drug business? Would her other best friend for 30 years end up being in the drug business? Again, I'm not saying illegal drugs. I'm saying these could be fentanyl patches, humanitarian. Not saying. On the return flight, hey, we dropped off here's my point. Hey, we dropped off all the weapons. Let's go back to Riyadh. Or Dubai's probably, because they don't like doing this stuff out of Riyadh. So let's go back to Dubai. Well, just want to let you know, we don't have to take that, those baggies anymore. Imran and Ram have a new plant here, a new synthetic plant here. We can fill that thing up with fentanyl patches, or whatever, Xanax. You get the idea that it works both ways. Drugs go in one direction, weapons go in the other direction. Again, Evergreen Aviation is all you have to say. Evergreen Aviation proves the case. It is a Saudi airplane. Khashoggi is an intelligence operative for 40 years. He is reporting directly to the king. He is reporting directly to the guy who was leading up from 1979 all the way up to 9/11. 24 years. Okay, maybe that's 34 years. But there was a period of time before that he was with Abdullah. I know from 91 to 99, there's no question about it. He's working directly for Saudi intelligence. But then he goes to work for Faisal after that. So now let's to be fair, as a journalist after 9/11, he distances, before 9/11, he calls Osama bin Laden beautiful. He says Osama bin Laden's beautiful. Jamal Khashoggi says Osama bin Laden's beautiful. Somehow he gets interviews with him, right? All during this time, right? He says he's beautiful. Now, he said, oh, you gave in to hate. You gave in to hate. Thank you very much. You gave in to hate after 9/11, Osama. And then Osama has another decade, 10 years, right? So there had to be, I think, a voice. Again, this is communications. This is cover stories, whatever. You can't have the Saudi government saying, go Osama bin Laden. I'm glad our training worked great on Khashoggi 1. Boy, the training was so good that went off without a hitch. Well, we needed the Israeli squibs. Right, horrible thing. I know a lot of people who died in that, so I'm not joking about that, but I'm just saying that there are squibs that blow in an order that would lead you to believe it was controlled demolition, helping the plane. I don't want to get into 9/11 stuff, but I do want to say that why wouldn't it have been this plane? Evergreen Aviation. Again, where does the plane come from? Where does this plane come from? Nellie Orr's Kingston, right? Is this how Mike Flynn knew what was happening? Is this what Mike Flynn was blowing the whistle on? I don't know. I think he does know about the trafficking because of this plane and because of planes like this in Rhode Island. Now, it would be nice to see what the report actually says, how involved Mike Flynn got with the compromise. I believe, as I've said always, Mike Flynn was compromised with the dinner. But this morning, the 2015 December dinner with Putin, as I said this morning, Nellie Orr got $44,000 in December. Remember, she's working for CIA before that. She leaves CIA. I'm going to walk over here just a little bit. Think highly enriched undulation or low enriched undulation, HEU or MEU. She's working, she leaves CIA and also MITRE, where you would steal secrets or exfiltrate secrets or whatever, bring in Russians to take back to work on projects for pay to play, to exfiltrate so we could do joint ventures overseas with American technologies. Yeah, that sounds good. Bruce Orr doing the Chinese and Nellie doing the Russians, mainly through Ukraine. But, oh, by the way, I've said from the beginning, I don't know how long I've said this, 2 years now, I've said that I'll have the Queen, this will be symbolic of Oleg Deripaska's yacht here, the Queen K. We can start talking about pay to play. There's our symbol for pay to play. I've said I thought Club K was made, at least containerized in Bulgaria. It could maybe that the Caliber missile was originally a Raytheon missile. That technology was pushed out to Rosboron export that makes the Club K. The containerization can really happen, I think, in any port. It's just a matter of having the right people there. I guess Thessalonica, because Frank Justra's there. Who would you want in charge of your pay-to-play operation other than Frank Justra and his 1,100 Frank Justra partners? So that's, if I'm running the show, and let's say every one of those is a container, every one of those boats is a container, I'll sit out there on my yacht and do my deals on the yacht in international waters. I'll just say I'm in Cypriot waters. If I control Cyprus or Malta, I'll just go do all my deals there. I'll do all my negotiations there, right? And then watch them go. You know, it's like when you're selling a high-end luxury car, you don't just say, oh, well, we're going to just, you know, you don't get a chance to see it. You know, you're going to have some demo room. You have to have showroom. Frank Justra is Mr. Showroom. He's Mr. Showroom. Now, there was the shooting today in Crimea. And I had been saying, hey, DC right there. I had been saying with Crimea that because it is a Russian port there in Sevastopol, that again, it follows this pattern of the crime centers, if you will, are the old Russian bases. Just like the CIA uses our old bases in the Midwest, like Deep Uranium had talked about the Glenview Airport as being one of the key places where drugs were being flown in from Canada and different places. And he was also talking about flying to Rhode Island on Navy flights to go get lobster and come back to that same airport, right? So again, I know Deep Uranium's discredited, but he had a lot of good insights. But I believe that Sevastopol was the key place. If the missiles are actually being made in Ekaterinburg or wherever these Caliber missiles, Caliber missile travels subsonically, and then when it gets close to the aircraft carrier, whatever, it goes into hypersonic speed to make it so that defense defeats the defenses of the aircraft carrier. So it's an aircraft carrier killer. This is a very serious, and it could also be nuclear enabled, a very serious cruise missile, right? And it's also, you can't see it from space. So the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, you cannot see it from space. So it's a double threat, right? Who better to sell it would than Spa War? Because you control these things from space. Spa War would be the first place I would go to look to see who in special operations and Spa War, space-driven special operations, who's selling this stuff. It's going to be a secure access program. And every country is going to be a different program. If we're going to have a program to sell to Pakistan, that's going to be one program, another program for selling to UAE, another program for, and I'm talking about a full 1, 2, 3. What are we going to do with you in nuclear? What are we going to do with you in weapons, and then how you're going to pay for it. 3 is how you're going to pay for it, right? And that, I believe, is why you need Harold the Purple Crayon, and that's why you need faux noodle soup. I've been made fun of for saying that, you know, first place he goes, Harold the Purple Crayon goes, is he flies up to Lockheed. He flies up to Middle River with a big hangar there. Big Lockheed hangar is where he goes. Geez, that sounds like a plane to me. I've seen a lot of planes come and go. There's another showroom. If you wanted to see technology, especially surveillance technology, because I can hang surveillance technology on any plane. I could take an old A-10 Warthog, which is still my favorite plane of all time. I could take an old A-10 Warthog and hang different infrared imaging systems and different systems off of it to do the, you know, to take the customers up and fly it. I think Harold the Purple Crayon is not only taking stuff home just because he's a pack rat. I think if you decide on this and such FLIR system or this and such whatever system, you got to have the manual. You got to have the installation manual. You got to have the parts manual. You got to have the troubleshooting guide. There's a shitload of, excuse me for swearing, there's a ton of documentation that comes along with an aircraft. I worked with Boeing on their system, their interleaf system. Thousands and thousands of pages. Also the maintenance schedule and so forth is very onerous. So again, I think Harold the Purple Crayon, the reason why, if you don't remember him, he's the guy exfiltrating secrets over a period of 20 years from NSA. I think it's because each of these weapons programs is a secure access protocol. Now, as we speak, we hear the sirens, and those are going to be Club K fire engines going over the Woodrow Wilson Bridge there. So how could that be not better? When we see an ambulance, we think Club Cassandra, fentanyl patches, and Rom's ambulances. You see a big fire engine that's going to, with the ladder, that reminds us of the missiles that Peter Strzok likes to sell out of PATCOM with Cruise Associates. And again, I want to say, a lot of the stream of consciousness or whatever, I say this stuff to get it out there so people can start thinking about it. And then they start doing searches. When you look at Sevastopol and figure out why is this little bit of Crimea, and I realize everyone's going to say, oh, the Russians wanted to keep their port on the Black Sea. It's their only opening to the Black Sea, just like, you know, their only other one to the Baltic is St. Petersburg. And I get that. I get that. And the same thing can be said for the base in Cyprus, Syria. But it also is a natural trading point if you have Deripaska, a GRU guy, doing your trades and selling this and exporting these Russian goods and so forth. They also become natural trading ports. Again, you have the security of the harbor. We own the harbor, right? We've got S-300s and S-400s all around the harbor. So it's secure. That's how I have my GRU officer there. That's how a GRU officer is up in St. Petersburg, right? That's how a GRU officer is out in wherever that goofy island is out in Siberia. And I can't remember the name of the Russian Navy base out there where Carter Page was. That's where I believe that's just a natural place to transact the business, right? Is in the Russian secure areas. And the reason why Oleg Deripaska knows all the GRU guys is because he's GRU. That's not hard. These are pretty easily figure outable things. I want to go back to Fentanyl 1 here. I want to go back to Khashoggi 1 because I think it's such a beautiful site. So I'm going to probably end it right here. I think the big thing now, between now and tomorrow, before Nellie Orr testifies, is really drilling down on the timeline. Between when did Crossfire Hurricane start, December 2015, and the big thing is the 811. Don't forget the 811. The 811 is an internal call amongst America's intelligence agencies, like a 911 call, meaning it means drop everything else. So if FBI comes up, or let's say CIA comes up with something and says, oh, Mike Flynn, he's doing a nuclear deal, he's doing a quid pro quo for a Crimean peace plan. We have a tape of him talking to Felix Sater at Trump Hollywood in wherever. And there's an envelope, and he took the envelope, right? And he's gonna lower sanctions for some sanction program if we give Russia Crimea, right? If that generates an 811, And now all the other agencies have to drop what they're doing and focus on the 811. That was the whole idea of naming it something close to 911. Drop everything you're doing. We have to work on this thing, this 811. Now there's an equivalent to Five Eyes can do that. Five Eyes, there's a red list. Interpol has a red sheet or a red list. I can't remember what the guy was telling me in Belgium, but they have like a hot list as well where they ask for cooperation. But I believe there's another level that 9 Eyes, 13 Eyes, and 5 Eyes have for a, hey, drop everything you're doing, this is really important. Something had to trigger that for them to do like this massive crossfire hurricane. Hey, every time you hear wind, think about crossfire hurricane. There's another thing, or Operation Cyclone, going all the way back to Pakistan. So there's two. You got 2 mnemonics for one, for just some wind noise. Now you got 3 mnemonics. You came here today, you did not pay $1. Well, some people did. I thank you for your super chats. And now you have 3 mnemonics for high wind. I mean, that's just about a red letter day that you could ever have. Well, I'll probably just leave it at that right now. I think it's going to be Russian ex-Navy bases where the Club Ks are sold. It's going to be Frank Justra. It's going to be a yacht. It's going to be Cyprus. It's going to be George Papadopoulos on the yacht. Hey, bring. They want the helicopters. Oh, okay, I can handle that one. Oh, bring. They want the caliber missiles. Oh, George, give me the phone. Carter. Here, get on this one. Or hey, we need a nuclear rod retrofit, a BWXT retrofit in Mobile, Alabama. And remember, we need to get Sessions 10%. Get in here, Carter. Oh, okay, yeah. Carter, you don't know anything about oil, but man, you know fuel rods. I'm telling you know what you're talking about when it comes to fuel rods. And you're going to find Carter Page is going to end up being a sub-expert, right? And also a damn good nuclear aircraft carrier expert. Doesn't know a damn thing about oil. All he knows is how to invite people to a dinner. Oh, here's 24 people you need to invite to a dinner. Okay, great. My name's Carter Page. But this will come out in due course. And the reason why I keep working all these irons in the fire is because we keep getting stonewalled. We keep getting stonewalled by all the actors. You can figure this out if you just let your mind work on it a little bit. And it's kind of fun, actually. It's kind of like Sudoku on steroids, or I've never played Sudoku, but it's kind of like a crossword puzzle in a way. Only all the evidence is available to you. It's only limited by the number of Google searches that you make. But when Crossfire Hurricane started, what is the process? And you can find this out right now. What is the process in Five Eyes to do an 811? Everyone in the intelligence community in the United States would know when an 811 was, and we got a couple of fentanyl patch ambulances over there, or ambulances. Everyone in the U.S. would know when the 811 was fired by Brennan. Brennan's going to be the guy who fired it off. It's going to be March. It's going to be March 9th when Fusion GPS gets the money. Fusion GPS is just going to be a CIA cutout, right? I think we all know that now. Glenn Simpson comes in, doesn't have to tell the truth. Under color of law, national security, I got it. Now is when we really need to push and fill in the blanks for the things that are easy to fill in, so the senators, the congressmen know what questions to ask. That's the key. That's the key. And then Trump could always declassify. Trump could always say who Anthony Weiner's trusted staff is. He could always say who the 19 State Department people are that are using Blackberries. That'd be easy. Jason could always take the original version of the film and put out what the serial number is rather than the pixelated version. That could tell us, that could give us some key clue to match up to my Blackberry. That would help. All sorts of things can help. Thomas, you could put out the thing, Thomas Paine, you could put out the interview with the kid up in Rhode Island and give us more detail. Maybe that kid will come forward now and give us more detail about where exactly he was about Anthony Weiner. Hey, did Anthony have a laptop? Was he using a Blackberry? I mean, there's questions we can ask once these people come forward. Everybody said, oh, this was this horrible idea with Laurel Everly. But she did 4 interviews. It was great. We learned all sorts of things about where the laptop was. We ended up getting the laptop shredded, unfortunately. But we learned a lot of things about where the laptop had been, the different emails she was using, the different VA places she was going, or the laptop was going in her place. Thank you very much. A lot of people just give me money on Super Chat and don't ask me any questions, so I'm not ignoring them. They're just saying thank you, and I appreciate that. So good day, all in all. I might do a Super Chat later tonight, or later tonight. But I think the whole narrative is collapsing. And today in the Business Times article was the first time I saw where people were acknowledging, yes, he did have an intelligence background. I think people who don't think he did are just being naive. And people who are saying that Evergreen Aviation wasn't a CIA cutout are just being naive. We know better. We know the history. I'm not trying to say that they did 9/11 training on this, but I'm saying you tell me where they did do it then. If I had to bet on a plane right now, I would bet on this plane. This plane's way ahead of whoever's in second. If I had to bet on a Queen K, and where they're selling the Queen K, I would say Montenegro, because that's where the Queen K was and John McCain was, and that was an old Russian Navy base. Or I would say Crimea, where they had the shooting today, in Sevastopol. That would make the most sense to me. Now, I like the idea of Sevastopol because you can get there by train. Dennis Katsev, right? His dad owns the railways, and he works for Fusion GPS. He owns the railways, so I can get anything from any place to anywhere else by bribing somebody who works for Dennis Katsev's dad, and I can get a whole bunch of Club K on a train from Ekaterinburg, which is in the middle, which is where they make the Caliber missile. I can't believe they couldn't make the Caliber missile also in Sofia, Bulgaria, which is why I think that's why John McCain and Joe Biden always went there. That's why you have a Bulgarian-speaking person in the Helsinki Commission of Human Rights out of the Library of Congress, a guy by the name of Kyle Parker. That's why you have a Bulgarian there, because you're making weapons in Bulgaria. Not a lot of people speaking Bulgarian these days. So anyway, we'll go through all that a little bit later. I think the key here now is to just focus on Khashoggi and use this press event, this manufactured press event, trying to screw up Trump, to really do a deep dive and ask about all the intelligence activities of this plane and Khashoggi from 1979 all the way to 2001 and after. If you look at where Osama bin Laden was, I'm sorry, I'm riffing now, in 92, 93, 94, he was in Khartoum, right? Gordon at Khartoum. No, it was Osama at Khartoum. And he was in Sudan, right? Well, what was he doing in Sudan? Stirring up unrest in oil fields and taking territory in Sudan, splitting Sudan in half. Also Kenya, also Somalia, Halima, right? Refugees there. We know there's refugees there. Basically working with strokes in Africa for 4 years, developing and building out Boko Haram. Again, the same training manuals that MS-13 had for assassination and for how to blow up, trains and so forth, that we discovered with Iran-Contra, they just get translated. They just get translated to Arabic. They get translated to Farsi for the Iranians. And what's the cousin language to Farsi? Dari. What does Imran Awan speak and all the conspirators in that ring speak? Dari. What does Mark Lambert's two daughters speak? Farsi. What does his wife speak? Russian. Where do they live? Iran. Okay, Iran's going to be the key kind of hub, if you will, for the whole dark network, weapons network, and drug network. So, give us the history. Thank you, John Brennan, for running your Khashoggi operation. It's probably the stupidest thing you could have possibly thought of, but it's like a cornucopia. It's like Christmas for metadata for us. So thank you, John Brennan.